the reason I say, you cup for defects, because there is a lot of sorting work already that goes into making sure your cup is not defective. That's already, to me, like, great. It's a great thing. It's a sign of labor, right? To have something that's, you look at the grains, it's uniform.
Yeah.
And then you roast it. Everything color is uniform. That's sorting. And then if things taste sweet, it's like you realize there might be potentially just picking ripe cherries. That's also a form of sorting.
Wow.
So there's a lot that already goes into what's called like an 80-point minimum specialty coffee.
Okay.
And
wow. I Am Consciously Curious, a podcast for those that are searching for meaning and fulfillment in their lives. My name is Victor Chan, and I'm on a mission to find out why people do what they do. I've interviewed white-collar to blue-collar, entrepreneurs to passion projects, and life is just too short to not produce meaningful work. Thanks for tuning in. All right, we are live with Mikey Rinaldo of New Math Coffee. Mikey, welcome.
thank you.
Thanks for hosting and leading a wonderful cupping, my second ever cupping, and I'm always learning something new. And something I mentioned in the cupping that I appreciated is how precise you are with the nuances of this process, and it just builds this sense of like wonder as far as like how deep someone can go in anything. And we were also talking about this in the episode that it wasn't always like this for you. Like you were not always a coffee drinker.
No.
And so you started talking about the V60 and getting into pour overs, starting to build your base of equipment. When did you start wanting to take it even more seriously than just brewing at home?
So I got me, recount a little bit. So I got into coffee during grad school in about 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
And so I started buying home brewing equipment,
Okay.
bought a grinder. And
what your first grinder, was that a burr grinder?
I don't remember. I think it was a burr grinder. I didn't get a blade. Might be entry level. Yeah. Baratza Encore.
Wow.
That's like a entry level grinder that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
Because now it's about like I think 150, but back then it was still under $100.
Yeah.
And that's a solid grinder for most home brewers if they want to get into grinding.
Okay.
It's hard to beat that to begin to start. Obviously, there are more options now, but you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
And for most home brewers, you don't need much more than that.
Okay.
If your coffee still comes out bad, then the issue is not going to be the grinder and not going to be the brewing equipment. It's like, what's your recipe? Or what kind of coffees are you getting?
Yeah.
So I got into that, but then it's part of my history of coffee that I rarely talk about. I actually competed in 2014 Brewers Cup as a home brewer, and I was using my friend's roasting. He was a home roaster as well.
Oh.
So, and I did well enough that got to nationals.
Wow.
And then, I was having fun. I actually, in the nationals, I didn't do too well, but I had fun. I brewed using a tea strainer and Whole Foods paper towel as a filter.
Was that part of the constraint? Like you couldn't?
No,
or
you
can
use anything.
Really? And you decided to bring those things?
Yep. Because I was trying to make it simple. Because the tea strainer just sits on top of the mug, and then you pour over it and steep it.
Huh.
So, yeah.
And you strained it with the paper towel?
Yep. Filter it with the paper towel.
Very interesting.
I didn't really know what I was doing back then, but I think that was kind of like a fun thing to do.
Were you, and paint the scenario, were you in Michigan at this point? Like, were you living in Michigan?
I was in Louisville, Kentucky.
You were in Kentucky too?
Kind of move around a bit. I was in Kentucky and then Louisville.
And then where was the competition?
In Durham, North Carolina.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It was like not the national, it was the regional one.
That was the regional one? So was there ever, did you enter a competition that was more local to you ever?
No, after that I stopped competing, but no, that was The Brewers Cup competition kind of evolved. There's more of a then localized one before the regional and then the nationals.
So that's what I mean. So did you ever do a local one prior to the regional one?
Nope, never.
You just went straight to regionals.
I did because there was no more localized.
There wasn't a more localized one.
So it was just, I think, one regional for the East and one for the West, and that's I think like 36 people could compete, and then like the top 5 or top 6, go into the finals.
Okay.
But it's just so long ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. What skill sets did you feel like you were cultivating like when you first got started and leading up to regionals?
I can't. I'm honestly having a hard time.
Something you
carries over.
You felt something that compelled you to compete.
Oh, right. Yeah. I just got really into homebrewing.
Okay.
And I thought also it's hanging out with a few coffee people in Louisville, and they all just say like, yeah, go ahead and compete as a home roaster, as a home brewer.
Okay.
That's fun. And I just, because the brewing competition is a lot more accessible than the barista competition.
Oh, okay.
Barista competition is a whole different level of investment.
Okay.
Obviously, it takes a bit of investment. It takes investment in competing in Brewers Cup, like especially sourcing like a competition grade beans.
Yeah.
That's not going to be cheap. But if you're competing in the barista, that's, I think, a different level of commitment.
I
bit
understand.
more. Yeah.
Like what things did you care about back then? Like, did you care about sourcing or roasting? Like,
I didn't.
What do you think was going to give you that edge in the brewing competition?
Nothing. I didn't have the nicest.
That's awesome.
I didn't have the nicest beans. It was just like, because everyone else was, the people who are part of a bigger company, they all showed up with geishas.
Oh, okay.
I think what's hilarious in the regional, I barely got to spot number 6, which took me to finals.
Oh, okay.
But so it's, Brewers Cup has 2 stages. The first stage, you brew a compulsory coffee that's provided to you.
Oh, okay.
And only if you move on to the finals, then
you can do your own.
You can, at least back then, that was the format. Then you can do your own coffee beans.
Sure.
So I thought it was funny. So I got to number 6. And
out of 36.
Out of 30. I forgot. I'm not sure about the regional. I know the nationals was 36. It was. But the person at number 7, he was from a bigger company, and he showed up with 2 geisha lots.
Oh.
That he was gonna. Yeah, it was like.
And he didn't even get to.
He didn't even get to do that. I just thought I was like, that was a little funny.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it was very close. I edged him out by.
Did you get
like a quarter point?
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you walked away with the feeling that you're enjoying this process and you want to go deeper.
I do. I think, and the reason I had a hard time is like, I know when. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you were asking, it's like, what did you learn?
Yeah.
And going up to that, because after the competition, I just talked to the home roaster who provided coffee for me, and he encouraged me to learn roasting, to get deeper, to understand, and that's after I learned roasting. It was a long process, 2 years of roasting at home, and I think it took me a year to produce anything decent.
Okay.
Yeah, and
where were you getting your green beans from back then?
There are several importers that cater to home roasters.
Oh, okay.
So usually what they do is they're willing to break a bag of like a 60 kilo or 135 pounds of coffee and sell it by the pound or by the half pound.
Okay.
So that's usually really helpful because it's really hard for home roasters to just buy a 60 kilo of anything to go through that much. And so like companies like Sweet Maria's, I feel like it's a great source for home roasters because
Okay.
they sell home machines as well,
Okay.
and they have a lot of blogs.
Yeah. Okay. Were you doing it on the stovetop back then, or how were you?
No,
how were you doing it?
I started out actually went and bought a home roasting machine.
Oh wow.
It's a Taiwanese machine. Called
You're all
Haka.
in. You're like both feet in. Anything you're doing.
Yeah, and yeah, I learned on a couple of Taiwanese home machines, and
Okay.
but it was great. And then I think after 2 years, that's when I feel pretty comfortable with because I roasted everything. I roasted different coffees.
Yeah.
I think to me that's kind of. I think that indirectly leads to me like focusing on Asian coffees is because I didn't want to just roast the Geshas or the nice Ethiopians or the nice Colombians. I traveled to Indonesia. It's like somebody gave me a bag of Robusta
Yeah.
from a small farmer and I roasted from different islands in Indonesia,
Yeah.
like Flores, Bali, and I think I was just really interested I was already interested in Asian origins at that point.
It's like, why isn't anyone talking about this? Why isn't anyone else roasting this?
That's much. You're right. That's and I understand. It's hard. It's really hard to beat great coffees from Latin America and Africa. Like I think, those are some of the most excellent coffees in the world.
So you were born in, you said Bali?
No,
Or
I was
Indonesia.
born in Jakarta, Indonesia.
When did you migrate?
So actually, I went to college in '99.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to college in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And I went back home for a year.
So when you migrated, did you migrate by yourself? Did you
I
know
didn't
someone?
migrate. I just,
Or just went to school?
Just
or
went to school,
Just
yeah.
went to school.
Yeah.
Like, as opposed to staying in Jakarta?
Yeah, I went to school and then I went home and decided I want to get out of Jakarta again. And I applied to grad school and got scholarship.
Okay.
And that was like a student visa.
Okay.
And then, and the reason I was able to stay afterwards, I was married at one point.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So, and then, and I think after grad school, I just settled in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any part of you that wants to go back to Jakarta? Or do you think you just want to showcase?
I like to travel there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my family's still there. I think, I feel pretty settled in Chicago.
Okay.
I think the lifestyle suits me.
Yeah.
And I actually love the cold weather. I don't mind cold weather.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love, I actually don't know what to do if it's like middle of summer. I like being in the cold. Then I just have a chance to stay in the U.S.
Okay.
So I got my first professional roasting job in South Carolina in 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so were you in South Carolina at the time? Was that where school was?
No, school was in Michigan.
Yeah, okay.
Grad school in Michigan. And
so
then,
college in Portland.
Yep.
And then
Grad
you went
school
back
in Michigan.
home.
Yep.
And then you came back for grad school in Michigan.
And then I traveled outside of the U.S. a little bit. And then, because at some point, this is also a former life. I thought about like being a green coffee exporter. So I was staying in Bali a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
But I think, after a while I realized roasting was it for me.
Huh.
That's the kind of like what I'm passionate about, most passionate about.
So you did you ever work as a barista at all?
Only for 6 months.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
So I think a lot of my deep dive into coffee came through roasting.
Yeah. And that's on your own time, right?
Yeah.
You got into home roasting first, and then you started roasting commercially?
2 years later, yeah.
Wow.
So, but I will say, I think it's through roasting that I don't know how to describe this. It's like learning the minutiae of roasting. Actually, also, I think, and understanding how beans behave when they're roasted and have different heat applications applied to them.
Yeah.
Heat settings and how they change in the brew. Yeah, that's kind of like gives me more insight into brewing as well. both espresso and also hand brewing.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, roasting is kind of the lens through which I see everything.
That's
Green
amazing.
coffee. Yeah.
Okay. So within the 2 years, how many roast or iterations did you end? If like are we talking thousands? Like how many is it? Is it on a daily basis, weekly basis? Like what are we talking?
I would say, I don't know if thousands, but definitely in the hundreds. I geeked out. I would roast, luckily, it's small amounts, like 100 grams at a time.
100 grams at a time. I was going to ask, like, what's the minimum amount that you have to roast?
Depending on the machine, yeah.
Oh.
So, but I got a machine that was small enough that I could do 100 grams at a time.
Okay.
And yeah, I would do 4 roasts a day.
4 roasts a day.
So,
wow.
then, yeah, I just kept at it. And the nice thing about roasting 100 grams at a time, if I screwed up, which I did a lot of.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of, it was like a rough and tumble year for a year.
What did you end up, like when you screw up, what does that mean? Are you overdoing it or underdoing it? And if you underdo it, can you throw it back in there? Like,
no, you can't.
Okay,
yeah,
you can't throw it back in.
It's like baking, right? It's like once you,
I see.
Once you screw up a pizza and that's it.
Huh.
You just have to restart.
Okay.
So, but it's only 100 grams at a time.
Yeah.
So it's fine. Even if I don't like it, I'll still drink it.
Yeah.
And kind of learn from that mistake.
Wow. At this time, what were you doing for work? If you were home roasting?
Home roasting.
'Cause I can't imagine that being a cheap hobby.
No, I did. So since I studied literature and I did language for comparative literature, I studied different languages.
Okay.
So I became a translator for a bit.
Oh, cool.
And also dabbled in
through what vessel? Would you teach English or like translate through what?
I was a document translator. I did a lot of medical documents.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So it's very technical.
Yeah.
Like cancer pathology reports.
That's pretty specific.
Yeah, but it's not. I think it's
like, for example, I took 6 years of Spanish, and medical Spanish is like so different.
I mean, it's still easier for me than translating literature.
Okay.
Like, how do you translate a metaphor?
Oh.
And you spend more time.
Because sometimes it doesn't not directly.
It's really difficult. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't do literary translation. I feel like I would just pull my hair out.
Did you end up finishing your PhD?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I don't tell a lot of people about it, but I did.
Yeah.
So I did it.
At the time.
I did a dissertation, yeah.
Wow. Was the plan going to be teaching or just going down that literary rabbit hole?
It was definitely, I got into the program and it was definitely an academic route, right? The idea is that you're expected to then apply for teaching jobs.
Okay.
I didn't think I was the greatest student.
Despite it being what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I definitely feel more comfortable as a roaster than I am as an academic at any point.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it wasn't hard for you to walk away?
No.
At least from a professional, like from a student standpoint.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
And it was just nice to finally be done with schooling because I think I was in school just for a long time.
That being said, I feel like you're in a never-ending school of roasting and coffee now.
But I like it's not formalized.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think, and just a lot of knowledge that I both learn from people in books, but also just figure out by myself.
Yeah.
For example, roasting Robusta, roasting Liberica. Like so many people have talked about, on a specialty scale, talked about how to roast Arabica, but I think we barely scratched the surface of understanding roasting Robusta.
So, okay, which then leads me to when you started home roasting, did you stick with one type of bean or species?
No, I went through everything.
But like at a time though, like just so you can like hone in on like this is how you would roast this bean.
I do, yeah. For example, if I'm learning how to roast Ethiopian coffees, that's something takes a specific skills or a specific heat setting in the machine. Then I would get 2 or 3 Ethiopian.
Okay.
And just test the profile that I have.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And completely different from how you roast a softer bean like Brazil's.
Huh.
Yeah. So.
Wow. And then, so tell me about the time that you were commercially roasting.
So I did, my first roasting job was in Greenville, South Carolina. I roasted for a company called Due South. It was a great crash course because a lot of commercial roasting jobs, you usually start by becoming an assistant roaster. So you roast under a head roaster.
Okay.
And usually assistant roasters, you just follow the recipes.
Sure.
And the head roasters, they buy the greens, and they might be the one deciding they would be the one deciding how to roast the different coffees.
Yeah.
But I was the only roaster. So, yeah.
Was this a startup?
It's a smaller company.
Coffee brand, or their previous roaster just left, or
Yeah, the previous roaster just left. It's a small company, but it's connected to a larger importer, and yeah, it was great. I learned to roast Brazil really well because it was 60% of what we roasted. But then, that's where I learned to roast Brazil.
Okay.
Ethiopia, Kenya, Colombia. So a lot of the big names, the big regions. I felt like I got a good base and understanding that really well. And then
where else did that take you?
So I moved to Chicago in 2019, and my first roasting job there, it wasn't too long, but I was at Passion House. And then afterward, I took a break because I was becoming interested in wine, and I worked as a couple at wine bars.
Okay.
But that's around early 2020. That's when I was thinking of starting New Math. It's like a small scale roastery.
This entire time, were you still roasting at home?
No, I no longer have my machines back then.
Oh.
And I think commercial roasting, which it's a hard position to get, but I think it's the best training when you have to roast the same coffee 20 different times a day.
Yeah.
I think nothing replaces that in your training.
Right.
Just repetition. And
you're learning on someone else's dime, essentially.
Yep. And knowing the smallest change on the heat could change the flavor of the coffee. Just learning the nuances of doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I started New Math. Yeah, it's funny. The LLC I got the LLC approval on March 4th, and that was the day of the founding of Chicago.
Oh.
Yeah, the anniversary of the founding of by Du Sublime. But then
interesting.
2 weeks later, the lockdown happened.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
So yeah, interesting times. But I didn't have my own space back then, and I was roasting on somebody else's machine.
Okay.
So it worked out.
So when you moved, why? First of all, why Chicago? What was calling you to Chicago?
I was checking out different cities. I think I grew up in Jakarta, so I like being in a city.
Okay.
Greenville was a nice landing spot. I learned a lot on my job, but I think it felt a little small for me.
Okay.
And I just wanted to be back in a big city.
Okay.
And so I was traveling. I checked out different cities like Denver. I've been to New York, and then I just feel Chicago has all the conveniences and offerings of a big city, but a fifth of the density of New York. And it still feels really neighborhoody.
Yeah.
If you don't like downtown area, you don't have to go downtown.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So where did you find yourself staying in then when you moved to Chicago?
Actually, I ended up in a Humboldt Park area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So it's end up working out well.
Okay. And when was the seed planted to, I guess, want to like brand the home roasting aspect? Because you said you haven't been roasting at home. It's like what made you want to?
Well, because
come
at that
back to
point
it?
I wasn't thinking as a home roaster. I had already worked as a commercial production roaster.
Okay.
So I was not roasting at home, but obviously,
Yeah.
I know how to operate a bigger machine already.
Yeah.
So I was thinking at that scale.
Oh, okay.
So starting instead of roasting 100 grams, then I started on either a 5 kilo machine or a 12 kilo. So that's going to be about 20 pounds.
Okay. Yeah. Which is bigger than home roasting.
Yeah. And I felt comfortable. It's like, and that's the hardest thing, I think, starting out. Learning roasting as a production roaster, you can only experiment so much because you have 20 pounds of coffee.
Yeah.
So you can't just screw around with that.
Oh, interesting.
And try different profiles.
Okay.
I think that was the nice thing learning home roasting was I could
small
do
amounts. Yeah, you could do so many iterations.
I could do some iterations and whatever I want with the profiling.
Yeah.
And try different things. So, yeah, no, I think I started production roasting in 2017, but I already knew how different beans from different regions behave in the machine.
Okay.
And that was really helpful.
Okay. Wow.
Especially because I was the only roaster
Yeah.
at that company.
Yeah.
And
So then tell me, like, what were the next steps, like, as the pandemic started to settle in, like, where was your mind at? Did you continue working at all, or?
I did. I was working at wine bar.
Okay.
And then, so worked part-time briefly at Spirit Tea.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. But then I became full-time new math, I think, around 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Wow, that's a long time. 3 years then.
25.
Yeah, 2020 to 2023. To taking it full time.
Full time, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So.
Is a brick and mortar in your future?
I would like a brick and mortar, but ideally it'd be a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
Something super small.
Sure.
Yeah.
But would you want it to be cozy where you can just hang out and sip on coffee?
Not necessarily. I think mostly more to go.
Yeah.
It's a business. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the idea of owning a large cafe really doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah.
Obviously, would love to people sit down, but also I think because having been in coffee for quite a bit, I lived through the era of venture capitalist firms just pumping millions of dollars into coffee companies, and they opened bigger and nicer cafes, and a lot of those didn't pan out. And a lot did, I think there's a lot of big cafes that are doing really well, but also I've seen big cafes who just fail.
Yeah.
And
so you think the concept of a cafe is hard to begin with?
Generally, yeah. You don't really make big money with coffee, right?
Yeah. What do you think it creates the ingredients? What are the ingredients to the success of certain cafes? Because it seems like it's more than just coffee. And obviously, side practice comes to mind, right? So there's so many components to what
makes a good
side
cafe. Yeah,
so
and that's why I don't feel like I have the perfect answer to that, to be able to summarize all that. I think, and this is what I learned from working at wine bars, is genuine customer service is super important. And specialty coffee went through a period where you get the stereotypical rude baristas era. Yeah. Wow. And I think,
what if you had a wine bar experience but with your coffee?
And by that I don't mean like a snooty high nose,
no, not at all.
Wine bar where you have a sommelier walking around with wearing a suit and their badge. Yeah, no, it's not that either. It's just learning to be genuinely accommodating and listening to what the customers want. And obviously, as a cafe owner, you have all the freedom to create the limitations of what you can and what you don't want to offer.
Yeah.
And
right.
just working within that limitation,
constraint,
It's a good example. If somebody asks, yeah, do you have vanilla latte? Rather than kind of like being rude about it, just say like, we don't, but we have this syrup.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you have mocha or something like that.
Right.
I think that's a really important aspect, and that's something I learned from working at wine bars. I just happen to have my former boss is one of those people that you see working service, and it's like, oh yeah, you're made for this. And so I learned a lot from her.
Yeah.
So
you found your sweet spot.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. Because obviously, like, coffee is important for me and what I offer and how I roast, but, you know, I think that's not necessarily what makes up the entirety of the cafe experience.
No, not at all.
Because, you know, if I want to brew coffee, I can do it at home. I do it well, and it's cheaper, but that's not the point of why I go to cafes. So.
Okay, gotcha. Tell me about cultivating relationships with these importers. Or do you become the importer?
So far, I try not to, because,
Okay.
you know, to be an importer, you do have to have a license. And I think it takes more logistics and like figuring out whose container can I piggyback on if you're a small importer. And where do you warehouse the coffee? Am I importing just for me, or am I trying to sell this to other roasters?
You're not interested in that?
Not really, no.
Okay.
I might be interested in small scale importing just for myself.
Yeah.
But as far as getting into the green coffee game, I feel that would take a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a task that I'm not sure like I would have the time for.
Okay. Have you been able to visit these farms that you're specializing in?
Not too much, but I was lucky. I did get to visit this farm in West Java, in Indonesia. I have two good friends who are Drew and Jen from Good Little Coffee. They're a couple. They're American, but they live in Jakarta, and they do coffee. They're exporting. And yeah, they took me to meet this farmer, Rani. And I didn't realize that she was my Q grader exam classmate.
No, wow.
This was, we met when she was only a cafe owner.
Wow.
She hasn't become a farmer, even though she's from a farming region in Java. And I was still a home roaster. I hadn't become like a full-time roaster.
Oh, wow.
So, and yeah, that was a great visit because I got to try her coffees at her farm. Yeah, and it was great. Yeah, that was probably the closest thing to like, you know, doing a farm visit.
Oh, I see. Yeah. It just seems so intimate when you start sharing these beans from, you know, Vietnam and Myanmar, and it just makes you wonder like how close or how tight of a relationship do you have with these farmers? I think, you know, first and foremost, you're telling their stories, right? So it's like, how did you even gain access to these people? Right. And I think I was lucky I was able to build a connection with the Vietnamese coffee sourcing because I was visiting Vietnam and just vacationing and just happened to stop by at this roastery. But also I was introduced by an importer of Vietnamese coffees. I think, relationships are really important, but I think, you know, on our end as roasters, sharing the risks of coffee pricing and upholding our business, our part on the business end is really important. And, you know. Can you elaborate on that, on sharing the risk? Small example, say you as a roaster, you ask the farmer to do a special experimental processing. And when it comes out,
the costs are already higher, but the cup quality doesn't feel special. And as a roaster,
is that their loss, or are you saying as a roaster you want to bear some of that risk with them?
Yeah, you buy the coffee.
Oh, okay.
You pay what's
upfront,
what's the fair price for them to produce, and
okay.
what's like what would be a price that not only covers the cost but also be able to give them profit, give the producer profit. I tend to not like doing this where, let's say, I buy multiple years from a producer through an importer. I don't do direct trading. And somehow, let's say, third-year harvest is not as good as the previous two. If you're talking about points, maybe it's a drop of 1 or 1.5 or 2 points. And I would still buy that coffee because I feel.
You feel obligated?
No, and it's not. It's definitely a sense. Yeah, maybe it's a sense of responsibility, but also like as a roaster, it's like I'll make this work. As long as it's not defective, I'll make this work.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, so far, luckily, I haven't had to struggle with a lot of that issue.
Yeah.
But I think to me, and this is learning from wine, you just know each harvest is not going to be the same.
Okay. It's very understanding.
Some going to be better than others, but I think, coffee is definitely an organic product, and it's nice to kind of trace the changes over time.
Okay.
And sometimes it's for the worse because we have climate change.
Yeah.
And coffee production is declining and suffering, especially for Arabica. So, I think, and the cost of production will go up, and then I think it's important that roasters, especially in the northern hemispheres, just willing to pay more for it, but also not just pay more, but this is a bit more specific issue, but I think, a coffee producer could only produce super premium lot in a small amount, but then they have their larger production that's kind of probably more, doesn't taste as special. But I think I'm not at that level where I'm able to support somebody at scale, but I think it's important than just, it's more helpful than if you're willing to buy more than just a premium lot for a producer.
Okay. I understand.
So I think, stuff like that I try to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
Because I don't try to look for what's called 90 plus point coffee.
Yeah. So do you feel like there's this disconnect between importing, after it's been imported, this disconnect between roasting and farming and producing? In the mass market of coffee.
It can be, I think. And that's why in the specialty coffee popularity in the past, the rise in the past 10 years, the idea of traceability is important. Where this farm's coming from. But if you're just used to buying coffee based on a brand, then you don't necessarily know who the producer is. Is it the same producer that provides the Brazil in that blend the same year, or is it a different one the next year? Yeah.
So who are you primarily? Are you primarily coordinating with your importer then?
I do, yeah. I think over the years, I've managed to find importers that some already have a strong Asian buying program. They have a committed buyer that stays in Asia and travel all year. Wow. And some are willing to take the risks, getting this Vietnamese coffees in. It was actually a great collaboration with Crop to Cup, because I came back from Vietnam, and I got all this great, neat little coffees, weird coffees, or just coffees that are unusual. And I brought it to the Crop to Cup office and cupped them. and they got really excited.
Wow.
And they want to bring these coffees in small amount. So, yeah, no, I've been very, very fortunate.
And to clarify, that's your importer?
One of the importers I work with.
Crop
Crop to Cup.
Very cool.
Yeah, their office is a 15-minute walk from my apartment.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So, yeah, I would just sometimes go there.
And is there a part of you that's curious about, I'm sure they do a good job of telling the story of the farmer and the producers, but is there any part of you that wants to even go deeper than what they're telling you?
What can you clarify?
I guess how do you I'm sure there's a part of you that wants to pay homage or do justice by the farmers and the producers.
I do. But, at the same time, I have to be careful. It's just, what do I mean by that? You're right.
Oh.
Doing justice to the farmer. Does it just mean like I'm slapping a picture of the producer on the bag?
Oh, sure.
And then that's it.
Yeah.
Take pictures from the farms or use the importers' pictures of the farm.
Sure.
Which, I do that. But also I think what's important, and I think it's important to be able to work with importers who are also kind of aligned with you on the mission. Right?
Yeah.
They're not trying to buy the cheapest coffees.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I admit, I don't always have the power over that either. But I think.
Is there a point where you think you're going to go straight to the farmers? Is that a thing, or do you?
That's direct trade. Yeah.
Is that a thing at the moment, or do you need a certain permit or license to
I would need certain license, and I've done just airdropping a small amount of coffee.
Yeah.
But not on a larger scale. I try to be careful about that because if I want to do that, then I want to be able to, at least be able to buy a whole pallet, rather than go visit the farms, have them host me.
And it's not worth it to them?
Yeah. Then I'm just buying 1 or 2 bags that I may or may not reject by the time it gets. Yeah. So I'm very careful about, I don't use the term direct trade because I'd rather just be honest about working with importers.
Sure.
As a small roaster. And there are good importers. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very thoughtful.
Yeah, someday it will make sense, but not right now.
The coffee shop that's opening in Pilsen, the Anticonquista.
They're opening in Pilsen because they had a small storefront on Armitage.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, for a little bit. I guess they're opening soon.
Yeah. I think all the inspections went well, and they're planning to open soon.
That's awesome.
And but this concept, I didn't know how much of a disconnect there was until they're emphasizing the fact that they're from farming, production, all the way to roasting and selling.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how much of a disconnect there was.
Yeah, that's very vertically integrated. And in a way, I like to see that more, where the farmers also have a roasting side to their business. Rani in Java, she roasts herself, and she has a couple of cafes. Yeah, I think that's a really healthy outgrowth. Yeah, an expansion of that. Because then, that's where people pay the most for coffee, is the roasted coffee.
Yeah. What's getting you excited these days about new math, about coffee? Anything you got coming up?
Let's see. Well, I think this year I'm excited. I'm going to be in Jakarta for a month in May, but that's going to coincide with the large convention, World of Coffee.
And that's in Jakarta?
It's going to be in Jakarta, and
wow.
Actually, 20 minutes from my parents' house.
Oh, wow.
So
is it in different places every time?
I think so. They change locations. Yeah.
How many times have you gone?
I've never been to a World of Coffee.
I've been
to the U.S. SCA Specialty Coffee Expo.
Okay.
Last April that was in Chicago, McCormick. So,
yeah.
So, but I've never been to the World of Coffee one.
World of Coffee.
Yeah.
So so I'm sure there's everything there. Is it from farming, production, different types of? Yeah,
I'm hoping,
everything.
Yeah, I'm hoping to meet well, not only reconnect with some of my coffee friends that I already know in Jakarta, but also meet producers,
Yeah.
people I haven't worked with, even if I don't end up buying from them this year. But it's just nice to know
Okay.
who's doing what.
Yeah. Yeah. At this point in time, like, how do you prevent yourself from getting burnt out?
I think well, luckily so far, like, yeah, I've been burnt out, but it's still like something, I still like this job.
Yeah,
Something that I do. And I think the one thing I learned from roasting that felt healthy was I just became less of a perfectionist. And once I moved to production roasting, I know enough how to produce like a good enough roasting for like
It's very surprising to hear that,
for
actually.
a new coffee.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get to the point where, I roast a new coffee and a coffee that I haven't roasted before, but I will sell it if I feel like it's good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning.
I'm very surprised in the sense of how precise you've been up until this point. Like this entire process, you've been so dialed in, and I would understand if you're like, it's not good enough, and you just toss it.
Yeah, no, there are things I feel like this is a good example. This is coffee I'm in the process of releasing, and this is the first test roast of it, of this new harvest, and I'm roasting on a machine that I'm still learning on. And yeah, to me, it's like, is there sweetness? Does it taste burnt? If it's not, then okay, that's good enough.
Oh.
But I guess, yeah, it takes us, obviously, it takes experience, confidence, and skill to get to that point where,
Yeah.
The point is I'm not trying to dupe customers, but it's also, the point is I'm also just trying to have a healthy relationship
I understand.
with the craft.
Yeah.
Because I think, yeah, because when I was learning home roasting, there were periods where I just get, like, now I look back at it and I think it's funny, where I feel like kind of down for like screwing up, like several roasts in a row.
Yeah. Where you were just hard on yourself and
Yeah, I just feel
okay.
like I'm totally failing. Yeah, and because then I realized, yeah, and the same goes with being a cafe. It's like sometimes the point is not to provide the best coffee, but more thinking about it holistically. What kind of experience are you giving the clients?
Yeah.
And obviously, like, I try to offer what I think is good, but at the same time, being a roaster is more than that. Yeah.
Is what would you?
And it's also, sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, go ahead.
To tie this all up too, and this is also, I told you earlier, I'm not trying to find the best coffee in the world. I know roasters who only buy coffee at like a certain score point.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I remember you saying it in previous episodes. Like the host said that she hasn't seen a score above 94, and that
94.
something in the low 80s is like great for you.
Yeah, because one, the reason I say, you cut for defects, because there is a lot of sorting work already that goes into making sure your cup is not defective. That's already, to me, like, great. It's a great thing. It's a sign of labor, right? To have something that's, you look at the greens, it's uniform.
Yeah.
And then you roast it, everything looks, color is uniform. That's sorting. And then if things taste sweet, it's like you realize there might be potentially just picking ripe cherries. That's also a form of sorting.
Wow.
So there's a lot that already goes into what's called like an 80-point minimum specialty coffee.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I feel like I'm always mindful of that, and especially because, it's great to see some regions in Asia where it's like, wow, coffees are super excellent. It's great. It's blowing my mind. Like, for example, like Northern Thai coffee. Yeah, blew my mind. It's super awesome. But also it means like, yeah, I go to other regions like, okay, you're still developing or like still kind of building the infrastructure for specialty
Yeah.
coffee production, but you could tell when something is there's already a lot of labor that goes into it, labor and investment. And yeah, to me, it would be senseless if I source coffee from Asia, but just expecting all 90 points coffee. To me, that's not
the point.
Yeah, no pun intended. That's not why I'm doing this. Yeah, no, and over time I just learned to kind of trust myself on that too. Yeah. And I always tell people part of it is, coffee people could learn from wine, because wine, if I can digress a little bit, wine went through a period where, I already talked about this in a previous interviews actually. Especially in the US, people became obsessed with scoring wine. And there's I guess, a trend based on one critic that does that. He gives a numeric score to wine. And yeah, so then you get to point chasing.
Point chasing.
Yeah. And then you get, marketing around coffee. It's we only... on the roaster side, we only source 84 plus point coffee, or on the farmer side, all our coffees are 85 points above. And it's really hard for me to relate to that, because I think it, oversimplifies too many things.
Or you're dismissing certain things, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And the longer I do this, or the way I source, is just, I'm just... obviously 90 point coffees are awesome. Would love to drink them, but that's not the point either.
Yeah.
It's a wide world for coffee production.
Yeah.
And not just Arabica. There's Liberica. There's specialty, Canephora, Robusta. And I just think that all of that is way more interesting than giving developing skills of assigning a numeric score to a cup.
Yeah.
I think it's what keeps me from being burnt out and keeps me excited in coffee is just staying open to different coffees, especially, coming from Asia.
Yeah.
So,
is there a certain region or country that you have your eye on that you haven't sampled or put out yet?
There's a couple. There's several coffees. I haven't sourced too much Thai coffee, but I'm definitely interested in that region. Tasted some really, really amazing coffees from Thailand. I did release one, Cup of Excellence, a green coffee competition coffee. That was one of the finalists. 2 years ago, I did release that. But also, you can apply the same interests, at least for me, to the regions that I've sourced from. Because then you go to Sumatra, you get younger producers doing different things that are interesting in Sumatra. Even though Sumatra is, an established producing region, they have their own tradition. Let's see. Definitely interested in getting more coffees from both Vietnam and Indonesia. Vietnam, Liberica, to me has been super eye-opening. Or getting a specialty Robusta at this level, super eye-opening. Not a cheap pursuit, but I think these are the things that keep me excited.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think what is the ratio or percentage of the of your sales? Is it straight to consumer? Is it wholesaling?
I don't have rough numbers right now, but majority now is wholesale. I did have more online retail during e-commerce during the pandemic.
Okay.
But I think, obviously now people are, when they buy coffee beans, they go back to just stopping by a store, a cafe, or a grocery store.
Right.
So, and that's, I think, I told you I would want at least one brick and mortar, like a small one.
Yeah.
If for nothing, at least for making it a retail hub. so people can
Right.
just stop by and pick up coffee.
Right. I mean, you have that model with like you're sharing, shelf space with at Drip
Yep.
or Side Practice, and it's like, I guess, but what would having your own space do for you then that you aren't doing already?
Two things. One, like a consistent hub. So
Okay.
it's like, so people know they can always get Mez coffee there. But also, if I have my own space, then it's like, oh, great. Now it's my own chance to curate if I want to feature guest roasters.
Yeah.
Who I want to feature the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
So
Do you think that'll be a Chicago project?
I think so.
Do you think you'll be in Chicago for long term?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. All my family is in Indonesia, and my parents are getting older. I'm definitely, that's why, part of why I'm, if not, that's the reason I'm visiting Jakarta.
Okay.
But yeah, I feel settled here.
How often would you communicate with them?
Well, I'm part of a family WhatsApp group.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. Then I would get on a call with my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not as often these days, but we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got inadvertently I got my brother interested in coffee too now.
Oh, really? This is a recent thing?
I think in the past year and a half.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but so.
What do you think did it for him?
Pardon me?
What do you think what do you think attracted them to the coffee? The
I
coffee
think
world.
just two things. One, whenever I go home, I bring coffee and brewing equipment, so he would see me on my scale, brewing.
Yeah. Yeah, and how meticulous.
Right. And then two is just Jakarta has such a healthy specialty coffee scene.
Okay.
The number of shops that are in Jakarta is way more than Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Way more.
Okay.
And
they live there. Your brother lives there?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And
it was you that got him into coffee.
I could be wrong. I like to think so. Yeah. Because he would start, texting me through WhatsApp. It's like, hey, have you seen this brewer? So, yeah. And I'm just like, no, I don't know much about that, but sure, tell me more.
Tell me more. Yeah.
Or he would ask me what roasters in Jakarta that I like. He was telling me about a roaster in Indonesia that he would like and would buy beans from. So,
okay.
and then, it's been interesting, but I'm not opposed to going back to Indonesia, but I will say I do like my life here in Chicago.
Okay.
I have a great social network.
Yeah.
Yeah, people who I call are dear friends. Yeah.
Yeah. When's the last time you physically saw your family?
23.
Okay, 2023?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's not that long ago.
Not that long.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you know how parents are. It's like,
oh, yeah.
The idea of, if they could see it.
I understand.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we hop off?
Not necessarily. I don't. And hopefully my answers make sense today.
Yeah. We tried to keep it in a chronological through line.
Mm-hmm. No, nothing. Just to kind of sum up, I do like the idea of teaching cupping to people.
Yeah.
But in a less of trying to be super technical about it, and just more because I think calling out or understanding flavor notes, that's the biggest hurdle for non-cuppers.
Yeah.
To start.
Sure.
In any beverage or any food.
Right.
In wine.
Yeah.
When, somebody says this tastes like graphite or shaved pencil.
How do you know what a pencil tastes like?
Some of the most colorful flavor descriptions I've seen tend to be in wine.
Okay.
Yeah, wine writing is obviously its own tradition. I think there's one.
Did you ever take SOM classes?
I did. Also, I didn't tell this a lot of people. not the some certification. I did just the basic level 2.
The
WSET.
Yeah. Okay.
So I did that
Nice.
in a heartbeat. Then there was no blind tasting. I didn't have to like blind taste anything. But yeah, I did just the basic level 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. No, that's it. And I would say people like happy to answer any questions they have on, getting home brewing equipment or like
Okay.
how to start tasting coffee. Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. Mikey, thank you for the time. Thank you for leading us through this cupping session. It was very informative. It was really nice to get to see like how you view the world as well as the coffee world, and why like how you're participating in it. I think it's really cool how you're doing that.
Yeah. No. I also will say this. I am also happy to see some other roasters that are starting to focus more on Asian origins as well.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I'm always happy to see that.
I guess speaking of that, because I went to my first like AAPI meeting, or not meeting, kind of like function, get together. I've never done anything like that. And like, I guess, can you recall a time when you first started cultivating a pride for being an Asian American?
I think, definitely. It kind of coincides with me like wanting to focus on Asian origins. It's just a way for me to like also maintain a connection to, part of it is Indonesia as a home. Also like exploring something that I didn't grow up with in Indonesia. I didn't drink coffee growing up. So I would say that was probably like the awakening for me, like having like a pride or as Asian American would be like around the time that I started new math, like 2020.
That's awesome.
But also, obviously it's not just new math, but it's just kind of understanding how things were evolving after the Black Lives Matter protests of 2020. Yeah. And but also, just meeting some other Asian Americans in Chicago who are more active in the protests and activism scene. Yeah. But it's, to me, it's not like, it is a commitment, but it's also, I think, I feel like also like, I see it both. Like, for example, in new math, I care about the origins, but it's also, and this is not something I talk about, it's also a way for me to, I still just want to roast good coffee and I care about roasting.
Yeah.
But I will always like speak more of origins when I talk to people. But I do geek out on roasting.
Yeah, in general.
But it's not, that's not the main marketing for new math. Whereas I could see some other roasteries is like, we roast the best coffee.
No. I mean, but would you say you roast, with an emphasis on Asian origin?
No.
Not even.
I think it's more, it's like depends on what you do. Like, if you want to roast light, then what do you accentuate in that roast? Is it straight up just acidity, or you're also highlighting sweetness? Yeah, those are things that I think about that apply to both Asian and non-Asian coffees. Yeah, I learned roasting from, I did roast Asian coffees, but I also roasted a lot of non-Asian coffees.
Okay.
Like,
because I feel like that's how you've been labeled recently, is like a local Asian roaster, a local like roaster that specializes in Asian origin.
Yeah.
But that's not all encompassing. That's not fully correct.
Well, that's how I like to kind of, just like talk about it. But also, I definitely care about specialty coffee and what the debates around it. And I care about roasting and what it means to roast badly, what it means to roast well. But yeah, it's at the same time, I think for the branding for New Math, it's definitely more just about talking about the origins to me and the producers. Because, you know, don't you think it's weird to just say, like, look how good of a roaster I am, or look how good my roasts are? I know that could be a selling point, but I don't know. To me, it's like, yeah, I try to roast my best, but
yeah. So how would you talk about it from yourself then? Like a roaster that emphasizes the origin, like origin coffee.
I think if I'm highlighting a specific region, especially the one that's not as well known in the US, then it's definitely incumbent upon me to be able to roast it well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's more just roasting it well and presenting what I think is a good roast is always implied, but it's not necessarily something that I just kind of highlight or be explicit about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a link. If you're highlighting an origin, then the only way you can see the what's good about that origin is tied to how you roast and how you brew it for people. But it's also a way to, like, for me to talk to other roasters. I'm like, I think it's only good that you know how to roast more origins rather than, oh, I only roast African or I only roast Latin American. I think we should. Yeah, it's only been helpful for me that I roast as many regions as I can. Yeah, I get excited if it's like a region that I've never roasted before, or I don't roast as much.
Yeah. I mean, so what would be an all-inclusive title that would accurately describe New Math then, if it's more than Asian origins?
I don't know if I have like a ready answer for that. I think,
Yeah.
because it's, as I said, you know, talking about the origins and highlighting certain regions, it's super important for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, is there anything more to add than just a roaster? You know, it's like, does that still fall short?
No, I think being a roaster, I think it's like, to me, that's like a very anchor. It's a good anchor identity to have. Let me try to think about it one more time. I think maybe for lack of better description, it's like decent roasted coffee, but from like lesser known regions in the US.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, I think I'm definitely like, I'm doing my own thing, but I also don't see my pursuit as completely separate from what other roasters are doing. I'm very much in conversation.
Yeah.
What people are doing, people who are roasting the best coffees, people who are roasting commodity coffees. Like, I just see it as all a bigger part of a conversation of roasting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, lesser known regions.
Lesser known regions in the U.S. Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
All right, everyone. Appreciate you tuning in. We will catch you in the next one. Give Mikey a follow at New Math Coffee, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.